Foster care adoption is not a financial question. It's a heart question. I say that because after you spend $0 to $2,500 on the process, get the federal adoption tax credit, and the children you adopted receive free healthcare until age 18, this really isn't a money question. It's a decision you make with your heart. Are you willing to help a child or sibling group heal and thrive? Are you willing to adjust your life to be a child's forever family? But more deeply, are you willing to deal with your own past wounds and hurts to become an adoptive parent? Hi there. My name is Marcy Bursack, and I am your personal foster care adoption mentor. I've been through this experience myself adopting a pair of siblings. My heart for the remaining 113,000 children who are still waiting to be adopted led me to use a stimulus payment to publish the Forgotten Adoption Option, a 70-page guide through this process, and then launch this podcast a month later. Then in 2022, I wrote a children's book called Are You a Forever Family? And I launched the Forgotten Adoption Option app, which spells out exactly what to expect if you plan to grow your family through foster care adoption. You can find all of these resources at forgottenadoptionoption.com. I am so delighted that you're tuning in, and I want to welcome you to be real. Real about your heart. Real about any questions that are running through your mind. In Season 3, monthly episodes will cover strategies for thriving as an adoptive family. You might also enjoy Season 1, where you can hear personal stories of adoptive parents and adopted children, and in Season 2 episodes where guests explain how to adopt U.S. children who are waiting for you in the foster care system. Whether you want to begin the adoption process right now or in the future, my heart is to help conquer the confusion and fears of the foster care adoption process so that fewer children continue to wait to be adopted. Welcome to the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast. In this episode, we will learn about how cloud software that's used in the for-profit world is modernizing the work of professionals who work in the foster care system. Matthew Wollack is a third-generation child welfare social worker. I seriously know no one else that can say that, who serves in the role of both Vice President of Strategic Development at Wolverine Human Services and as President and CEO of eNoble. Hey, Matthew.
Hello, and thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast.
So excited to have you. Yeah, some folks may be familiar with your work on TikTok, so we'll have to make sure. Actually, Matthew, where would they find you on TikTok?
At Child Welfare News.
Very nice. Easy. So if you want to see Matthew's face and hear some really interesting things going on in this space, I would encourage you. I think sometimes you even share it over to LinkedIn because that's where I see some of your stuff.
Yep. About once a week, I share it over on LinkedIn to drive that traffic back to go viral if at all possible. So if anybody wants to help me try and make some child welfare news go viral, please give me a follow.
Beautiful. So as someone that works in the tech industry, what happened is I was curious, like, what are the tools that are available in the child welfare space? So I did all sorts of research and I stumbled onto Matthew's eNoble website and I was like, I'm going to reach out. This is curious. And I ended up attending a webinar for eNoble and I got to see their tool firsthand. So I'm not going to share what all that is and let Matthew do that for you. So we're going to kind of kick into all about Matthew first. So seriously, Matthew, I don't think I know anyone that can say they're a third generation social worker before I met you. So can you tell our listeners, like, what's your family's story about being involved in child welfare?
Yes, of course. With my grandfather, Clarence Fisher. Started his child welfare career back in the 60s and 70s, actually ended with other partners founding for Black children. This was founded in Detroit, Michigan, and at the time it was actually the first minority-specific foster care agency in the Homes for Black Children is still alive and running in Detroit. And thankful that my grandfather got to participate. Led my mother to become, and from a very young age, she would go to work. And at the time when she was getting exposed was for Lutheran Children's Services, located, that branch located in Detroit, Michigan. So my mother, in her teenage years, was exposed to child welfare and foster care and adoption service. And then, of course, my father actually had passed, ended up with him actually going to federal penitentiary. Long story short, he grew up in Brooklyn, got involved in some organized criminal activity, and was also a police officer at the time. If you've Serpico, Al Pacino is one of his first and greatest. My father was actually a part of that whole incident, aka the New York Police Department being cleaned back. And he was unfortunately involved in some illicit drug trafficking internationally and domestically. And after being caught by a wire, he ended up serving in federal penitentiary, which actually ended him up in Michigan. So came from New York out to Michigan, and he had a come to Jesus prison in which he determined that when he left, he would help children avoid the situation that he encountered. And it's important to note he actually grew up in a blended family. He had foster children, siblings, as well as adoptive siblings throughout his family. So I have 9 aunts and uncles, and it's a wonderful blended family. When he did come out of prison, he dedicated himself to child welfare and social work. And eventually the National Social Work Conference, which happened to be being held in Detroit, Michigan. And my grandmother, Clarence, was actually responsible for hosting that here. That's where he met my mother, Judith, actually at the National Social Work Conference in Detroit. They ended up falling in love and ended up a few short years later founding Wolverine Human Services, which went on to become one of the largest child welfare and juvenile justice agencies, not only in the state of Michigan, but throughout the nation as well. Which, of course, when your family runs a social work agency, just like my mother, I was highly from birth care to group homes to clinical services, and I essentially grew up in and out of residential group homes. And then, of course, when I was working, I began working in our community centers, running after-school programs, summer programs, and throughout my entire education, whether it was in high school, college, even my master's, I always worked within a group home facility, providing direct services to children. And after I got my master's in social work from the University of Michigan, I ended up moving into more of an executive function. Really where I got exposed to so many of the troubles and the issues that plague the child welfare system as a whole. So three generations of child welfare social work led me here to you, and having once again a wonderful conversation and being able to share those experiences with others.
Which is amazing. And Matthew, I want to point out, so first off, like, the love story is super cute. Actually, I found your dad's book and have been reading it, so I haven't gotten to his like come to Jesus moment quite yet. So I love knowing what's next. But what I think is really rare, just because I've spent some time myself in social service, is not only are you a 3rd generation social worker, but you have a grandpa and a dad. You have a mom too, but like the 3 guys, like 3 generations of males that are social workers, like that's super rare.
And then I have another male social worker, my cousin, who's out in New York. I have another male social worker cousin who is in Florida. And then I have a female cousin who is a social worker in Michigan. And then, of course, my brother is also a social worker.
Amazing. It's amazing. Like you, and it's great too, because I'm very inspired by your family story, because you all didn't just say, well, let's go commit our lives to this field, but you really are paving way new things in this space to make it better. And to your dad's point, right? Like, they really committed himself to the space. So I'm excited to dive into that. So in terms of your own personal stories, you kind of explained to us how you were like exposed to it and around it, but did you have a moment or anything specific about being around these families and children and just kind of this area of work that for you was like, I absolutely know that I'm meant to work in this space?
I would say there's two, potentially three moments, and they all actually revolve around different parts of my educational experience. So the first one was when I was my senior year in high school and I was in my government class. The last day of my class, my teacher pulled me into the back room and basically sat me down and said, "You have perspectives and experiences and understandings that people will never have. And you always need to speak up and share those things because you are a voice that most people, especially in this community, will never hear or experience." And that was the first time that somebody acknowledged that the work that my family was doing
Wow.
was important. And once again, being able to share their message and bring awareness to what's going on, it was just an eye-opening experience for me. And especially being a high schooler, it's not, what you expect to hear. And then when I was actually going in my college searches, I went ahead and did an interview at a very prominent school, and the interviewer just was flabbergasted about, once again, the work that I was doing in high school, the work that my family was doing, and really just once again validated that my perspective, my voice, and my experience was something that they valued and that they wanted at their institution to broaden the perspective and understanding of their students. So once again, it was educators valuing and acknowledging what I considered as normal life. And then the final experience was my master's in social work. I was fortunate enough to be chosen as a child welfare scholar, and go through the child welfare special program at University of Michigan, the #1 school of social education. And I take those credentials and things very much to heart. And the reason being is because I know if you go to Harvard Law, or you go to Wharton Business, or you go to MIT for engineering, those are the top schools. And you are going to be you're going to become naturally, well, socially, as a result of those institutions, you're going to become a thought leader. You're going to become a decision maker. You're going to be somebody who guides the future of these practices. And that's how I viewed the University of Michigan, that I, as a result of going here, would have or be able to have significant implications on what the future of child welfare was. And when I got there, I was once again validated by professors, specifically one, Sue-Ann Savas, and I'll never forget it. And the way that she acknowledged my experiences, my understandings of not only the industry, but how clients, children, and families, as well as staff members, were all affected within those practices. I realized that I was light years ahead of a lot of my classmates. And I was having elevated conversations with guest speakers. And at one point I even called into question a judge, right in the middle of a class, who was working on child welfare. And I really did not agree with the what she was saying and how she was practicing it. And from then on, having those three people acknowledge that my life was not a normal life, really gave me that perspective and that empowerment that this is what I'm supposed to do. I mean, I can't put it more simply. It was very clear.
Yeah, it seems crystal clear. Yeah, and it's interesting to me how not only did they recognize it in you, but they told you, and then how you receive that as like, oh, I have these lived experiences and I've seen these things and I've been around people and I love these people. And so I see that I have like a responsibility, right, with that. And I'm curious, Matthew, I'm going to kind of ask this question from, I'm thinking through, we have several listeners that are educators and we have several people, and we talked as we were prepping for the episode, there are several people listening that have aged out of the foster care system. And I think something you just touched on might be a message to them about using their voice. So I wonder, like, using the experience you went through, if you were to encourage educators or anyone with lived experience in this space, like, what would you say to them about maybe things you had to go through in your own mind about like overcoming doubt to share your voice, or those things? What would you say to them?
Your voice is the most important voice in this entire practice of social work. Child welfare is the start of where social work happens, working with the child and the mother. And if you have gone through those services and you've been exposed to those type of experiences, it's so empowering to hear what you have gone through and what you believe is working and what you believe can be changed. And there are very few people that are willing to speak up and willing to share those experiences, because sometimes, as we know, they may be embarrassed by that they were in the foster care system, or they may not have had the best experiences. But those voices are the voices that push change, that demand change, and give insight to the politicians and the lawmakers that have the ability to make those changes. And whenever I'm given the ability to do advocacy or to be a political liaison within that world, it always comes back to the most important story we can tell and the most important voice we can share is that of the clients and the families that are there. And that is what moves the needle in making change happen. So I highly, highly encourage you, if you have been a part of this, foster care services, if in any way, and you feel that motivation, that you want to see change, that you want the experience to be better than what it was for you, for the next child that has to go through that, your voice is the most important thing to make that change happen. So please know that your voice is going to be recognized, it's going to be shared, and it is going to be valued if you so feel the call to share that experience.
So good. I feel like you just activated people that have those experiences and maybe just weren't sure where to use it. So Matthew, I appreciate you sharing.
And I do say this, please, if you had a phenomenal experience with an agency and you saw them 10 or 20 years ago, that agency wants nothing more than you to have the best life and the best outcomes. And if you feel that your life is where you want it to be right now, sharing that with the people who helped or that were a part of that journey is very, very rewarding to them as well, because they have invested time, energy, love, and passion and compassion into you and your success. So sharing that with other people is always a phenomenal way to celebrate.
Yeah, and especially looping back people that were part of that journey. That's so good. So Matthew, your journey is so interesting to me because you kind of stumbled into starting a business while in like the nonprofit space. So, and I think this is like such an incredible story. Can you share what happened that led you to create eNoble?
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal experience that it's not a phenomenal experience. It's a unique experience that is not actually that unique, but it's something that motivated me to make change. And the reality is if you've been working in child welfare, you're probably familiar with a child welfare information system. The states known are state automated child welfare information systems. And this is where all data for services, for assessments, for investigations, it's all compiled here at a state level and then is shared with the federal government. And since the 90s, these states have been working to implement these types of information centers. And they're great. Why? Because they provide transparency. Well, they're great when they're built the appropriate way. And what I found out in Michigan, as they took on this endeavor, they didn't actually build a wonderful system. And they started building in 2010. They released the system in 2016. And unfortunately, when they turned on the system, it broke the entire child welfare system in Michigan. And the main reason was it was not able to appropriately account services to payments. And what that means in Michigan is there's about 80 nonprofit providers who are contracted by the state of Michigan to provide services, foster care, adoption, qualified residential treatment, substance abuse, whatever it may be. And within 6 months, the state's child welfare information system could not process those services. And it created $90 million in back payments to nonprofits. My family's nonprofit at any time during this time period was carrying a $6 million to a $9 million receivable from the state of Michigan, meaning that all of these agencies continued to provide the necessary services to these children and families and weren't getting paid for the work that they were doing. And as we all know, nonprofits run on a very tight budget. And for them to carry that much debt and liability can really significantly hurt that agency as well as all the children that they serve. So when this happened, I was about 24 years old, so about 10 years ago. And excuse me, I guess I was a little older. I was actually 26. And I saw this occurring, and I really just thought to myself, we have come too far with technology. There's no way that this can stand as adequate. And it didn't help that the system to date has cost over $120 million to build. That didn't sit right with me. We have spent $320 million for failed software that is hurting nonprofits and is letting children and families slip through the cracks. And so I was fortunately given the opportunity to make a change in my family's agency and create an internal child welfare information system that would be able to audit the state's records. And so that's what we did. I went ahead and went on a search. I did a Google search, crazy thing to do back in the day. And you know what I found? I found Salesforce. And Salesforce had salesforce.org, their nonprofit arm at the time. And they were really focused on providing nonprofits fundraising resources. And it came at no cost. It was 10 free licenses. So I was able to convince the board of directors that, we need a fundraising software. We don't have one in place. And then as well, we could utilize that software to manage the recruitment and the licensing of foster parents. This had never been done on Salesforce, and there's really still very few softwares out there that manage the actual recruitment of a foster parent. So during that time, we worked with Salesforce and their partners, and we reimagined to work with families. It became not about processing a family through the system. It became, how can we provide these families the best customer service possible? How can we give them every resource to move through the process in the way that they need to? How can we make sure that we're monitoring and supplying additional tools or additional steps in order for them to be successful? And we did that so quickly, and it was so successful that the agency said, if you can do that, let's see what you can do for the rest of the agency. And so we were given the ability to then go ahead and build out the first fully functional child welfare information on the Salesforce platform. My family's agency is the full continuum of services. So at the time, there was 27 unique child welfare programs running from qualified residential treatment, maximum security services, all the way down to family preservation and community-based services. So I was fortunate enough that the agency we were working with was truly reflective of what a child welfare agency can do and what they should be doing for the families. It also helped that at the time, our agency was the first and only certified competent agency in cognitive behavioral therapy with the Beck Institute. We actually did a 3-year partnership with the Beck Institute to evidence-base the entire agency. So what I love is I was pushing the technology boundary in child welfare further than it had ever been. And at the same time, our clinical services were pushing evidence-based practice further than it's ever been in child welfare. So it was a really exciting time to evolve what the expectations for technology and services could be. And then long story short, Salesforce heard about this and they wanted to share it with the rest of the world. They have a little, and I say little jokingly, conference out in San Francisco once a year called Dreamforce. They celebrate every industry that they support, whether it's government, industrial, social services, nonprofits. And I was invited to go and speak at this conference. There's 250,000 people that actually come to the conference annually. And I was given a spot to speak. There's about 2,000 people that are also given the opportunity. And it was truly at that event that I realized we had done something very, very special. And the long story short is I was given a speaking spot, but it was in the bottom, it was in the basement of a hotel, open area, and anybody who's coming by could come by. And of course, the gentleman who presented before me, he only had 2 people show up to his. So I didn't have very high expectations because I didn't think people cared about child welfare in the way that I did. But about 2 minutes before I started, all 30 of the chairs that were set out, they were filled. And by the time I started, there were 40 people standing, waiting to hear me speak about child welfare technology. And this blew my mind. Why would people actually care about supporting child welfare services? And why is this mega company so engaged about this? So I gave my presentation and I get one question, and it's from a woman in the front, and she raises her hand. I go, yeah, what's your question? And she goes, don't really have a question. I'm from the Salesforce government team, and we actually have all of our reps here right now. And we know everybody else in this crowd is waiting to speak to you specifically. We have other meetings to get to, so we would like to be first in line. Can we be first in line? Once again, this was a shock to me because why would anybody want to talk to me, at Salesforce's huge conference? You got U2 playing down the street, right? Go check them out. No need to talk to me. But what ended up happening was there was a 2-hour wait in a very large line for him to speak to me and about what I had done and how I had done it. And what was most important about that time was the federal government acknowledged that their initial information systems that were being built were outdated. Why? Because the decree came out in the 1990s. It was 2015, 2016. They acknowledged that, federal government acknowledged that now child welfare information systems should be on the cloud. They should be application driven and they should be replicatable. And that's exactly what I built. A cloud-based child welfare information system that was packaged into an app. And you can go ahead and search eNoble Child App Exchange. You're going to find it right there on the Salesforce App Exchange. And they acknowledged that I had built the future of child welfare technology and how they could partner and how they could bring this technology to market. And that's truly when I realized, and everybody around me realized, that this company had significant potential to evolve the way that child welfare was being done. But more importantly to me, we were going and we are meeting the new generation of child welfare where they want to be needed, meaning that we now have millennials who are running agencies and are making decisions. We now have Gen Zs that are providing direct service. It's no longer the Gen X's and the boomers. They're all retiring. And we appreciate all of the experiences and all the knowledge that they bestow upon us. But as that younger generation, we need the tools to do the work in the way that we imagine it to be done. Meaning we want it to be easy, we want it to be transparent, and we want it to be in our fingertips. So that's exactly what we have done. We have built technology built by caseworkers for caseworkers. And our goal is to make sure that every agency that is looking to recruit and retain young people, that they work with us. Not only that, we evolved in the way that clients and families would interact with technology. And that was by the idea of self-service portals, right? Banking is taking place online. You want to do your mortgage? Great. You can do it all online through an application. You want to get a loan? Great. You want to do checking? Whatever it is, you can do it through your app. But going through the foster care licensing process was always a confusion, right? You didn't know where you were. You didn't know what had to be done. You didn't know what next steps was. And the reality was that your licensing worker could potentially change multiple times during your process because of the turnover rate that we see within this industry. So I wanted to say, how can we make the customer experience driven by the family? And that's giving them that self-service tool, allowing them to take it at their own pace, allowing them to know where they are, and allowing them to know who to contact when they need help. So yeah, it was, this all started by having a major failure at a state system, which allowed me to understand a larger problem, create a solution that I knew would help support one agency, and then being forward thinking enough to go, if I'm solving a problem for one agency, it has to be shared by every other agency. And that was acknowledged, and that's where we are today.
And Matthew, it's so incredible to me because I think, okay, sometimes we get frustrated kind of when we're given lemons, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, what do I do? And you all had so much on the line in terms of people you were serving and the amount of revenue that was like in hiatus. And out of that, I think what's so neat about your story is you gave us a little bit of an idea of your training is purely social work. And you were like, I can solve this problem. I'll go figure this out. And you stumbled kind of into a solution that's not just for your agency or your state, but like a solution that's quite scalable and to me has such great potential to help children, in so many places in our communities, in our country and around the globe, be able to, like you said, like just really connect all those pieces and make things simple and transparent. I'm very excited about what you've uncovered, but I think I also just want to say thank you for investing the time, energy, and frustration, right? And going through all of that, because as someone that's in the technology space by day, like it can be really frustrating to try to get something new off the ground because it doesn't go smooth and there's bugs, there's these things. And yet you were like, okay, let's just see what happens. And I think that's such a incredible gift to just the world at large, Matthew, that you've stumbled into this and you've really invested in it. And so I'm curious, so some of our listeners are child welfare professionals and some are people that might not have any kind of direct hands in the technology in the space, but can you tell us a bit about what Noble Child can do to make our jobs easier? Or if we're not in this space, like what could we be expecting? How can we help our states get into this? Because I'm thinking many of us are like, we want to live in Michigan. Like this sounds like I'll have a very transparent licensing process instead of it kind of feeling mystical. Like Where do those two different kind of perspectives, what can we learn from you?
Awesome. So that's a great question. So our technology is, it's a 360-degree view and understanding of any client or family within our system. And we go end to end. So we're talking from an initial referral, investigations, right? All the way up to case management, reintegration. Obviously, these are specific to the child. But then when we're talking about families, as you mentioned, we're talking about the recruitment, the licensing, and once again, that ongoing placement and case management. So our system, because it's built on the Salesforce platform, if you're not familiar with Salesforce, I highly recommend you check them out. But our platform is the most robust, it's the most secure, the most efficient platform in the world right now. We set the standards for security all the way up from FedRAMP down to HIPAA. Our platform has over 99 security clearances and certifications. So you can guarantee that child welfare data, which is the most important data in my mind, is going to be in a secure place. From there, our systems, it's on the cloud. So you have the ability to access on the desktop, you have the ability to access on your mobile phone, and of course on your iPad, meaning that you can do your casework real time in the field. The same type of functionality that you would expect on your desktop is, once again, on those mobile devices. If you're in a rural area, our application still works. It still allows you to process. And then once you do enter data, it's going to upload everything into that system in real time. People love our reporting and our dashboards. We have the most advanced reporting and data tools in the world. You can easily build your own reports with our awesome built-in wizard. And then, of course, you can easily customize and build dashboards that really can help guide not only where your entire team is, but if you're an individual caseworker, where you need to move and what you need to do next within your own casework. Because our system is built on Salesforce, we do have AI built in throughout. So if something happens in your case, you can be alerted immediately. And if somebody else is working on your case or working within that record, we actually have internal messaging too. So think about having a Twitter or a Facebook right in your case management system. You can message people, you can provide polls or questions. But really, what's the most important thing within our system is you are able to unify every part of your agency, the services that you provide, all onto one platform. And if you are a nonprofit, that does mean that you can integrate your fundraising, your development work, your employee management, your financials, all into one platform. And then, of course, when there's no silos of data, and we're all on one platform, there's transparency and a much higher level of understanding that we can provide to our individual cases and the families that we're serving. So really, what I would say is, if you're looking for the child welfare tool that can do it all, we are the group for you.
Which is a pretty big promise, but man, you've got a lot of stuff in there packaged and you're using it yourself. You've got so much just traction on this. And so Matthew, if listeners are thinking, well, I want to get a demo, or I want to be able to, maybe I'm in the licensing process and I want to tell my licensing worker about this, where would you point people?
I would point people to noblechild.cloud. And then as well, if you guys are interested, you can actually check out our eNoble, that's ENOBLE LinkedIn page. Our LinkedIn page actually has all of our previous webinars saved and ready for you to watch. Our webinars are great because they're into the application, meaning that they really last anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. And they're going to give you that high level overview. Some of them are going to show you how the full recruitment and licensing plan works. Some are going to show just how to handle that initial inquiry. Marcy, I know you saw that one.
Yeah.
Some of them just show reports and dashboards. So I recommend you check out our website. I recommend you check out our LinkedIn. And then, of course, if you like what you see, we are more than excited to give you guys a custom demo. So if you have specific problem points that you're currently facing, let us know what they are. We can resolve them. And we can show you in real time how we would resolve those with your team. So tons of resources out there. And then, of course, if you guys are just looking for fun content about what's happening around the nation, always, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, check out @Child Welfare News on TikTok. That's really when we just talk about the major news stories that are affecting different states. And then, of course, those issues, as I know, are usually plaguing the entire industry. So we would love to see you guys on TikTok and sharing your perspectives and opinions as well.
So cool, Matthew. This has been such a treat, I think, to kind of give a glimpse to anyone that's listening about, well, this is something that's cutting edge and could be something you could bring to your organization, or you could let your community know. I think there's just huge value there, Matthew. And I'm so excited to have crossed paths with you. I loved when I reached out. You were very eager. As you even said, you're, more than excited to connect with people because you truly care about people. And I just really want to commend you for stepping into this work, and hopefully for generations to come in your family, this continues to be the place where you all make a big difference. But it's been great to have you on, Matthew. Thanks for making this tool, sharing about this tool, and encouraging our listeners.
Of course. And the final thing I have to say, Marcy, is thank you so much for having me. And I'm only here because of the amazing support group that I have around me, whether it's my amazing team members who are all social workers and make our product, amazing investors that have believed in this idea from day one. And I say that because all of the amazing work that everyone does that's listening to this, you need to make sure that you have that amazing support circle that believes in you, that you can share the work and the passion that you have, and that they too can be exposed to such an important thing that you guys are all working towards. So I want to make sure that I give love to my support circle, and I want to make sure that you guys always remember your support circle and make sure you give them the love and attention that they need for supporting you in the amazing work that you guys do. And Marcy, thank you again for hosting this amazing podcast and inviting me to be here.
It's been a treat, Matthew. Thanks a bunch. As a listener of the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast, you are helping to raise awareness about foster care adoption and the 113,000 adoptable children in the United States. By leaving a review, subscribing, sharing, and talking about this podcast, you can help a child and sibling groups find their forever family. If you only have time to do one, sharing is the most impactful way to help a child who is waiting to be adopted. If you'd like more information on adopting a child or sibling group through the foster care system, please visit my website, ForgottenAdoptionOption.com. There you will find how to get started using my new and free Forgotten Adoption Option app, and you can even order a copy of my book for adults, The Forgotten Adoption Option, which guides you through the entire process, and you can find my book for children of all ages, Are You Forever Family? You can pick from paperback, audio, and ebook formats, and you might even be able to find my books at your local library. Please keep me in mind as you're thinking of gift ideas and guest speakers. If you have any question about the process, or you're wondering if you're even qualified to adopt, please reach out. Please send your friends and family my way too. You can easily find me by searching for Marcy Bursack on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I intentionally carve out time each week to encourage and teach people just like you. I really appreciate you tuning in, caring, and sharing, because every child deserves to be in their forever family.